Oh my God, everyone saw that.
And we are back. Woo.
Oh, hello.
Oh,
Thanks
been
for
a little
jumping
bit.
in.
Yeah, we're just going right in. It's been a crazy couple months.
Yeah, so we felt like we owed it to you as our listeners and viewers to give you kind of like a brief summary of why we took a break. And
Yeah.
now we're back. And it's obviously been, what, like 2 months at this point?
Yeah, about a month and a half. Yeah.
So what happened, Brian? What's the story? What are we going to tell these people?
Well, first off, we're going to pay some teases in this episode. We're going to get into what dreams may
Finally.
come. And you have a phenomenal subject you want to get into about psilocybin. So we're going to be talking about all those things. But just before we get into that, and this might even be related, but bottom line, like first off, we had some varying, we were sick. I mean, we're always sick in the head, but like we were
that time of year. There's COVID, RSV, flu, cold, like everything's going around. So it was our turn to get it.
Yeah, and it was a nasty round, and then there was some other health/medical stuff getting taken care of. We don't have to go into too much detail on that. But then, getting to the end of November, a lot of people are traveling to visit family. We were traveling for, pretty much over a week around there. And so, a lot of time taken doing all this.
It seems like, it flew by so quickly.
Right.
So much happened within the last couple months. And it just made sense for us to kind of take a break.
Mm-hmm.
And I think creatively we needed it. And it also helped us with our physical health to be able to just focus on that and to not be concerned about, oh no, did we record? Did we release the episode on time?
Yeah.
Not that we don't love doing it, but
no, we do.
It's also an investment, and sometimes it's important to take some time for yourself, invest in your health.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's just been hectic, as often happens. Life happens,
Yes.
and I mean, I guess we could have recorded from within the hotel room. I mean, I might have sneakily recorded you at certain points in that hotel room.
We were on a trip visiting families, staying in a hotel.
They weren't in the hotel the whole time.
We did not have time to record any episodes. We
No,
were
that's
enjoying
true.
the holiday, and I hope all of you did too.
But I did get some great pictures. Whew. Folks, when you got a wife like this.
Are you going to put them on OnlyFans?
I should. I will.
This
certainly
is news
will.
to me. All right.
Well, it's nice to be in control. Anyway, no.
You can just get away with anything.
It's amazing. What a life.
Pretty much.
Yeah. It's good to be the master. Okay. So anyway, that's what's been going on, folks. Nothing really to worry about.
We're okay.
Yeah, we're okay.
Great.
Just taking care of things and visiting family, all that stuff.
Yep. And now we're back into the swing of things.
Yeah, so let's get back into it because I mean we're going to be hammering you folks with episodes now going forward and all kinds of stuff, and I'm very excited to talk about a lot of it. But that's not what we're going to talk about right now. Right now we're going to talk about psilocybin and what is it called? The MGB axis.
So our recent travels had me thinking about the gut-brain axis in a big way because...
and that's what MGB axis means, right? Microbiome, gut, brain axis.
Yes,
yeah,
right.
Okay.
So we were traveling, obviously. We stayed in a hotel. And when you're on the road, as most people know, it's hard to find really good quality, healthy food.
Especially in the Midwest.
Oh my gosh. The Midwest is the worst. So
Can I get a seltzer, please?
there's no seltzer unless it has sugar and caffeine in it. There's meat everywhere, lots of cheese. Not that I'm complaining about the cheese because it's so delicious.
Oh, yeah.
It's like the only dairy product that I ever consume.
Right.
Otherwise, you and I are vegetarian, for the most part vegan, though the cheese obviously is an exception for me.
Sure.
The vegetarian part, like when I was growing up in the Midwest, was incredibly difficult because, again, the majority of what they grow out there is feed corn for the animals that people eat.
Right.
So there's feed corn and then there's animals. And it's kind of a food desert. You're stuck with what is out there, basically, or things that are like packaged, preserved. So anyway, like traveling on the road, we didn't have our own kitchen. We stopped at grocery stores, but you can only do so much when you're in a hotel room.
Yeah. And not every state has a Sheetz, the Sheetz gas station. Anyway, move along.
Okay, so while Sheetz is amazing for traveling, especially when you're driving at like 1 a.m. and you need to stay awake.
Yeah.
So you pick up some French toast sticks with chocolate sauce. I don't think that it's really a solution to what I'm talking about.
No, Sheetz is a solution to everything, but that's okay. You're right, not for what you're talking about. Let's go.
I think Panera Bread was actually a savior for me out in the Midwest
when
I was growing up, because that was the only place that really served good salad.
Right.
But now there's a lot more options when it comes to restaurants. It's just, you really have to pay up if you want to eat out all the time when you're traveling.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So, like, are there cheaper, healthier options out there? I mean, you can buy raw fruits and vegetables at grocery stores, but again, the hotel was serving breakfast every morning, and all I could really eat was oatmeal.
Yeah.
And if they had like oranges or apples, and not that I'm complaining because those are all delicious things, but there was so many other options that included meat and eggs and meat or waffles. Which, unfortunately, I have a slight allergy to gluten, so, like, that doesn't work out for me so well. Here in New England, it's amazing. I can get food everywhere, anywhere we go. But, like, Thanksgiving Day, our family went out to lunch at a local restaurant, and I couldn't really eat anything there except for potatoes.
Yeah.
I was a little shocked by that. Like, really? There was one option.
Yep.
And that's such a rarity out in New England. Like, there's options everywhere for anyone. Even if you go to, like, local butcheries, usually they have some sort of salad.
Or you can always count on a good Indian place, to have your hookup.
Or Mexican food.
Yeah, for
Mexican
any
food is amazing.
diet. Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Indian, Mexican.
Right.
I mean, these people know how to eat.
Yeah. That's for sure.
And, like, there was not a bean in sight.
Yep.
We were beanless in Michigan. And let me tell you, our microbiomes suffered because of this.
Right.
We were struggling. Like, so I don't want to gross people out about this, but this is something that I think about a lot because the microbial gut-brain axis is so important to your mental health and your physical health in a variety of ways. And when you are eating a diet that's low in fiber and you're not feeding your microbiome, they stop working.
Yeah, right.
And the short-chain fatty acids that they use to communicate with your brain via the vagus nerve, they're not able to produce as many of those if you're not feeding them. So it was hard for us because we went from, like, eating kale and beans and fruits and vegetables every single day to, like, maybe some potatoes and and bread and like a couple, like, apples or whatever here and there. And yeah, I just felt so off the whole time we were traveling. So this has definitely been on my mind a lot.
Sure.
This aspect of health. Is there anything you wanted to share about that, about our travels and diet?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, I'm not aware if I have the gluten problem, anyway, and that opens up quite a few more options for me. But it's just,
I think you would be aware if you had the problem.
Yeah. I'd be on the toilet, and it'd be very different.
A lot more than you already are.
Yeah, exactly, which is already plenty. It is hard. I mean, and that's, it's one of the great things I love about New England, and actually I'll just say this, like, New England and California, dietary wise, food wise, have been ahead of the curve my entire life, 4 decades. Like, they've always been, like, there was never a problem getting vegetarian food in upstate New York, or certainly not in New York City either, and I mean, I'll be fair that, Michigan, which is where we ended up, you have Battle Creek, you have Grand Rapids, and they're a lot better about those sorts of things. Yeah. And part of that comes from, the Seventh-day Adventists. Like they're a force out there, and they make sure they have their food.
And college towns too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like Ann Arbor, of course, would be another, safe haven for that. We've visited there before, and it's fine. But like, in New England, you don't have to find the pockets. It just seems like people get it and it's available, whatever. It's an interesting thing, and yeah, it really is a challenge. And you don't know it's a challenge until like you really do restrict your lifestyle in that way. I don't just want to say diet because it is a lifestyle. And that's when you start to see like, oh, wow. And it's also when you realize just how bad most of the food is. And this isn't just about vegetarianism or veganism or anything. This could be true for any kind of lifestyle
if you're trying
restriction.
To cut out processed food.
Yeah. I mean, you're screwed. You're just screwed, and especially when you get to certain parts of like in the United States, it's a bad situation. And when you consider like what you're talking about here with the MGB axis, like, I mean, this is basically like a whole system communication up and down. I mean, even though the brain is really everywhere and even beyond you, but ultimately on a biological level, like this whole system has to communicate really, really well. And your diet is a huge part of that, and I think that it's interesting. Like basically you've run into research that's saying that really there's a psilocybiome, if I'm to put it that way. It's a funny word to say, but it's very clever. So a psilocybiome that, is the MGB axis enhanced with psilocybin, right? And what does that allow for? Like what comes out of that? And I think that's amazing to consider. But I mean, I will caveat right up front, get your diet in check first before you think psilocybin is going to change the game for you. Okay. Whatever that diet is that you choose. And I like to be careful with the word diet because diets are fads. You know what I mean? This is about lifestyles.
Yeah. This is a daily diet. Like what do you actually live on?
Exactly. And really, I don't like using the word restriction either because it shouldn't be considered a restriction. This is, I'm going to be fucking healthy. You know what I mean? Whatever that choice is. So it shouldn't be seen as a restriction. It's actually the exact opposite. It's taking you from the finite to the infinite. But I think that this is really interesting. So when you get your diet, your eating style down and your whatever, we use the word diet. So diet health down. What does psilocybin do for you at that point? And I think this is interesting stuff to talk about. What do you got?
Well, I just wanted to comment on what you said. It's really important that you eat foods that make you feel good.
Yeah.
And I know for myself that processed food, like corn syrup, anything with gluten, lots of salt, saturated fats, fried foods, whatever, like those all make me feel less good. Sometimes bad.
I mean, they make me feel good when I'm watching like the latest Predator movie, but afterwards, screwed.
And when you're done watching the movie, how are you going to make it to the next level of spirituality?
Yeah,
you know? How are you going to meditate and feel your entire body, do that whole body scan, and really feel well enough to reach out to the infinite, like you were saying?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Or be it. Yeah. I mean, not when you're feeling like a lead weight, it's not happening. For sure. Yeah.
So that's the importance of diet, I think, is just making sure that you feel good enough that you don't ever have to worry about your body feeling sick. And that's the most important thing for me. I know I frequently get headaches or whatever, and that has a lot to do with diet and caffeine intake and sleep. So it's a whole thing. And I just wanted to mention, there's a word here that I want to introduce into this conversation. I think it's a really key word. The one that you said, what was it?
Psilocybiome.
Psilocybiome. Yes. Yeah. We'll come across that again later, I think, when we go through this article that I'm going to present. But this other word, I just want people to be aware of it, even if we don't mention it again, because it's so important. So this complex composite of microbial and human cells and genes, known as the holobiont, expands the organismic boundaries and confines of the self to encompass bidirectional information exchange processes within our microbial ecosystem. So that word is holobiont.
Yep.
Holobiont.
Yeah.
Holobiont.
Yeah, I feel like it comes out of like the word like holon, but regardless, yeah, holobiont. I mean, it's clever. It really is.
Yeah. Expands organismic boundaries and confines of the self. So that's something that we do as humans that I think can be damaging in some cases, where we like to delineate and define things and put very clear black and white lines and edges around categories. Right. But in the case of biology, that is so challenging to do because our bodies contain so many microbes and yeasts and viruses that we're kind of all a symbiotic organism together.
Yeah. I mean, I think if the word holobiont, if that's how it's exactly pronounced, I love the word, and because what it reminds me of, just to give you an analogy, is it's instead of thinking of like Earth, you think of the heliosphere.
Yeah, the whole ecosystem.
The entire solar system. Like the Earth does not exist it kind of exists in a vacuum of space, but it doesn't exist in a vacuum. Like it is part of a larger system. And even that is part of a larger system. And I think what I love about this word holobiont, even though I imagine it doesn't include, shall we say, spiritual aspects of the person, even though it should, I love that it is changing the idea that like you're not just your body, you're also your surroundings. You're the bacteria on your skin. You're so many things around you. Which, like you said, we like to, in science especially, we like to have degrees of separation and everything. And of course, it's not unironic that we're going to talk about psilocybin, which for many people, it seems to get rid of those separations and rough edges.
Yeah.
But anyway,
one thing I love about this article, which by the way is called Seeking the Psylocibiome. Seeking the Psylocibiome.
It's such a great word.
Psychedelics meet the microbiota gut-brain axis. So one thing I love about this article is that right up front in the abstract, they quote William Blake. If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would appear to man as it is, infinite. For man has closed himself up till he sees all things through narrow chinks of his cavern.
That is perfection, and that is ironic, to quote William Blake. Of course, William Blake, not a fan of the scientific method. He believed in what he called conscious intuition, and that's how you get to the truth. Of course, famous poet.
While William Blake, the esteemed 19th century London poet, never used the exact phrase, conscious intuition, as a formal title, everything in his jagged, burning philosophy screams it. To Blake, he saw most people of his time drift through life in a haze of single vision, seeing only what their eyes tell them, measuring the world with the limp, cold tools of logic. But Blake held to tools that leapt beyond logic, that he often called the poetic genius, the raw, throbbing power of the human spirit that doesn't just perceive reality, but penetrates it and bends it to its will. Blake despised many of the minds of his day, men like Bacon, Newton and Locke, who believed the mind was just a blank slate waiting to be written on by sensory experience. He called their logic the ratio, a system of measuring and comparing that can only understand what is already dead and known. To Blake, the ratio is a shackle. It is the logic of the mundane, who accepts the world as it is given to him. Conscious intuition, in the Blakean sense, is the poetic genius. It is the assertion that, in his words, the poetic genius is the true man, and that the body or outward form of man is derived from the poetic genius. To Blake, the body is just the heavy, wet clay. The will, the genius, is what sculpts it. You don't have an intuition. You are a force of intuition that creates the body and the world around it. Blake's intuition isn't some vague woo-woo feeling. It is a discipline of the senses. He mapped a hierarchy of perception that separates the truly aware from those that relied on dead logic. a hierarchy that takes the shape of 4 different types of vision. Single vision is pure sensation. Newton's sleep, as Blake would say. This is how the cattle sees the field, just grass to be chewed. Twofold vision is seeing the metaphor, the intellectual appreciation of the world. Threefold vision is another level, and something much more, allowing for emotional and creative engagement. The last is the fourfold vision, the state of the master. This is conscious intuition fully realised. It is seeing the infinite in the finite. When the weak-willed man sees the sun, he sees a round disk of fire, somewhat like a guinea pig. But when the master sees the sun, he sees, in Blake's words, the innumerable company of the heavenly host, crying, "Holy, holy, holy." This isn't hallucination. This is an understanding of the individual's co-creative process within reality. Blake's example was Urizen versus Loss, the war in the mind. Urizen is this impressive-looking, muscular, bearded, godlike creature, yes. But look at what he does. He hunches over, measuring the void with a compass. He is the spirit of reason, of law, of thou shalt not. He tries to bind the infinite into a measurable, safe ratio. He is the enemy of vitality. Opposing Urizen is Loss, the blacksmith. Loss is the embodiment of the creative imagination, or intuition. He beats the raw materials of the universe into shape with his hammer. He works in fire and blood. He represents the will. Loss does not accept the natural state of their body or their reality. They take the hammer to it. They force it to conform to their internal vision. That is the essence of conscious intuition. It is the refusal to be passive in this universe, and to recognise that it is not cold. It welcomes loss. It welcomes the imagination of the self-aware being. It's important to note that Blake also rejected the fragile morality of good versus evil. He replaced it with energy versus passive reason. Good is just the passive that obeys reason. Evil is the active springing from energy. He famously wrote in The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, "The tigers of wrath are wiser than the horses of instruction." Conscious intuition is the tiger. It attacks the truth directly. It doesn't ask for permission, and it doesn't wait for a peer-reviewed study to tell it what is real. It knows because it is. To the pedestrian mind, this may seem anti-science, but this is not so. Blake was not anti-science in the way a modern religious might be. He was an engraver, a man who worked with copper, acid, and heavy presses. He understood the chemistry of biting acid into metal. He respected the craft of the material world. What he loathed, with a fiery prophetic prose, was scientism. He hated the religion of science that was rising in his time, the belief that only what can be weighed, measured, and categorized is real. In his engraving, the Laocoon, Blake inscribed a sentence that terrifies the weak. Art is the tree of life. Science is the tree of death. Why death? Because the science of Bacon, Newton, and Locke, his unholy trinity, sought to freeze the universe. The scientist, in Blake's view, kills the butterfly to pin it to a board and label it. The scientist studies the corpse of the world. The artist and mystic participates in the living flight of the butterfly. To Blake, Newtonian physics was a prison cell. It told men, you are small, the universe is a giant clockwork machine, and you are just a cog. There is no spirit, only gravity and mass. This is a philosophy of submission. It tells you that you are subject to laws you didn't write. Blake famously wrote, "To generalise is to be an idiot. To particularise is the alone distinction of merit." This is a crucial insight. Science, or the ratio, seeks to generalise. All humans have 206 bones. It turns people into statistics. It treats individuals like interchangeable cattle. True knowledge, the poetic genius, sees the particular. It sees this specific stone, this specific woman, or specific moment. For example, looking at a woman, you don't see a female, a biological category. You see her specific energy, her specific ownness. To do otherwise is to disrespect the being before you. Generalisation is the tool of the bureaucrat. Particularisation is the tool of the lover and the master. And here is the great irony. Blake actually used the term science positively in other contexts. He spoke of the sweet science of the imagination. For Blake, true science wasn't about passive observation. It was about intellectual engagement. It was the rigorous, sweaty, difficult work of clearing the mind of debris to see the infinite. False science is passive. I see what is there. True science, or art, is active. I create what must be there. Blake is correct in this rare insight. You are Los, swinging their hammer, respecting your biology and existence, but with the opportunity to mould that existence to your desires on the anvil. Blake wasn't fighting against knowledge. He was fighting against scientific materialism, the idea that matter is the master and the co-creative spirit is a myth. He refused to let the ratio of the scientist measure his soul. As Blake said, "May God us keep from single vision and Newton's sleep."
Phenomenal. I mean, like every mystic on planet Earth should be quoting William Blake, and it's beautiful for scientists maybe to finally catch up. So anyway, please,
Yes.
keep going. Big fan.
I think any group of scientists that are writing papers about Psylocibiome and how psilocybin affects our gut microbiota and our brain, and both of those things synergistically, they've got to be thinking on this next spiritual level.
I would think so. I would think so. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, they're seeing that there's something beyond just the physical that
Exactly.
they're studying,
Yeah.
which would allow us to open those doors of perception.
I love it. So, what do they got?
So I'll just I'll read the summary basically
Sure.
of the paper, because this paper, while fantastic, and I wish I could read the entire thing, it's incredibly long. So thank you for putting together the summary.
Yeah.
So this paper proposes that the microbiota gut-brain axis acts as a convergence hub that modulates the therapeutic effects of serotonergic psychedelics across the preparatory, acute administration, and integration phases of therapy. So they split up therapy into 3 phases there, which, there's the preparation, there's the administration, and then integration, which takes place after, like in the days following when you actually take the drugs. And the preparation phase could include things like fasting or eating specific foods. When you actually administer the drugs, that's when they call it acute administration, because they're looking at like the very immediate effects. So that's why they split it up that way. The core concept, termed the Psylocibiome, highlights the reciprocal host microbiota psychedelic interactions, where biofeedback signals from peripheral networks influence the complex central mechanisms of psychedelics. Evidence is presented across pathways like tryptamine and kynuramine metabolism, as well as immune and stress response symptoms, which they term the HPA axis, suggesting that the gut microbial matrix interacts with systems also targeted by psychedelics. So they're working in tandem.
Right.
Ultimately, the paper suggests that integrating the MGB axis into treatment could advance a precision medicine-based psychedelic therapy paradigm, potentially by modifying the MGB axis during the preparatory phase to enhance therapeutic response rates and support long-term homeostatic behavioral changes, such as improved diet and exercise. But it does go even beyond that.
Sure.
And that's kind of what they cover in this next section. So the positive effects associated with the reciprocal relationship between the microbiota gut-brain axis and psychedelics, as discussed in the source material, primarily relates to enhancing therapeutic outcomes and promoting long-term well-being and homeostasis, which is basically a stable, healthy, happy person.
Mm-hmm. Right. But holistically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. So they talk about enhanced therapeutic response and patient stratification. The MGB axis may serve as a composite psychobiomarker to stratify individuals who may preferentially respond to psychedelic therapy. So they're kind of mentioning here that not everybody responds to psychedelics the same way.
Right.
And they are hypothesizing that the MGB axis has something to do with that. So, like, if you change your microbiome, you might also change your sensitivity to psychedelics.
Right. Interesting. Okay.
So, given the plasticity of MGB axis signaling, it could potentially be altered through diet or other methods during the preparatory phase to shift the body into a state which might better respond to psychedelic therapy.
Well, so this is interesting. I mean, even just understanding the way that this biological process works, the MGB axis, and that, like, okay, wait a minute. So, and we've talked in previous episodes, we've talked about, like longevity benefits of, psilocybin.
Right.
So, this is something that is beneficial in, as research goes on in a multitude of ways. And if a person isn't inherently responsive to, psychedelics, basically what they've learned is, well, but we can get you to where you are. Or at least early research is suggesting which that's exciting. Why? Because again, we just keep finding benefits with this stuff. So yeah, like great. It's good to know that this is something that you can be conditioned into.
Yeah. And what's exciting for me about that conclusion is that it also aligns with very traditional methods of taking psychedelics,
Mm-hmm.
in a ritualistic fashion.
Mm-hmm.
So like many rituals around the world include fasting for several
Right.
days, or maybe eating very specific foods
Right.
prior to taking psychedelics. And I think that was determined by intuition from the ancient peoples that, partaking in this preparatory phase could actually enhance the effects of whatever psychedelics they were going to take.
Right. Right.
So I know we do this for LSD. We've read about this certainly quite a lot for ayahuasca ceremonies. There's a very strict diet that people are supposed to follow for up to 2 months leading up to taking ayahuasca. This is something that I think is important to do, and like we've certainly noticed differences in our experience.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to hear from other people if they've noticed, like, if you're eating really well or maybe really poorly and then take psychedelics, does the experience change depending on that for you?
Get that stuff in the YouTube comments or the Spotify comments, please. Love to hear those stories, and we'll read them on air. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just think it's amazing that we're always finding these instances where like science is bearing out these ancient traditions and kind of proving them right.
For sure. Yeah, totally. Well, I think William Blake was right. Conscious intuition. So
Yeah. Yep.
I'm glad they quoted him early. But anyway, please continue.
Okay. So the next thing they list is long-term behavioral maintenance and homeostasis. So like maintaining your sanity. In the integration phase following psychedelic administration, synergistic MGB axis signaling could help reinforce peripheral mechanisms to contribute to the instigation and maintenance of behavioral changes that are more optimal for homeostasis over longer time frames. These self-reported changes include improved diet, which is endorsed by about 60% of participants in some surveys, and increased exercise, which is pretty close to the same percentage of people. So, like, over half the people who take psychedelics in the days and weeks following that experience improve their diet and their exercise habits just on their own because they want to.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I want to make a quick comment here. I mean, because it says self-reported. Look, folks, the legal fictions and scenarios around, psilocybin, around entheogens in general, like, it has to be self-reported. It's so rare. I mean, they're out there. There are research labs out there, but a lot of the research being done with psychedelics has to be self-reported. And there's incredible value in that. And I mean, there's so many books you can go out there and read, done by genuine scientists, even though they're relying upon a lot of self-reporting. It's just the nature of the game, right now that they have to do that. So I don't want people to write that off, like, by no means. No, this is how this is getting done. And there are consistent results that come out of that, which genuinely follows the scientific method if you give a shit about that. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that was known. But the benefits, I mean, that's exciting. Like in that, there are long-term, like I say, like behavioral stability, right? Which I think a lot of people today, would probably interest them, like this idea. I mean, mental health is like, the problem du jour. And, for something like this, because we're not talking about taking insane doses here. Like, this could be microdosing, whatever, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be on a consistent basis. Of course, read the paper to get all of that. But the reality is that it's there, it can be seen. And again, it comes through this hub, the MGB axis. Anyway, sorry, please.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. What this is saying to me is that people want to feel good after taking entheogens or psychedelics, and they're making choices consciously to continue feeling good.
Right.
And that's incredible. Like, I know we can all self-sabotage sometimes and convince ourselves that maybe we want to eat a pizza at 10 p.m. All by ourselves, and like the next day we'll regret it while we're doing it, it's that guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
But there's always that part of you that knows this isn't good for me. I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
And like, we're really good at quieting that voice, in order to get immediate gratification, which sometimes is important. Granted, like, everybody needs to have stress relief if they have a really stressful life or whatever. But the fact that, like, you can take entheogens and the stress does not impact your decision making,
right,
when it comes to, like, whether you're making the right choices for yourself or not, that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, and consider too, I mean, again, like, as far as eating goes, like, you want to be healthy, and like we've been saying this whole episode, like, eating is that's step one. Okay. for like, that's where health starts.
Exercise is a very close step too.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. But it's 80-20, like it's around there, as far as those go. And, just think that, so, a lot of people medicate themselves with food, right? And they overdo it, and understandably, considering what so many people have gone through and what life is like these days and so on. Like, I'm not judging anybody by this. But the benefit, I think, here comparatively is, look, if the legal game got, I mean, not that I care about laws, but if that got changed around this sort of thing, anybody can grow this stuff. You don't have to rely on Pfizer or whatever big pharma company to give you Ozempic. You don't have to rely. I mean, you can actually, like, you don't have to get on a subscription plan for this. You can do this yourself. And,
you can develop resilience. You can develop stress tolerance. You can develop healthy habits.
Exactly.
And you can get rid of your depression or, the impulse to make bad choices.
Exactly. Right. And you don't end up becoming, a criminal gang, like hijacking the Ozempic trucks around the country. Instead you just, sit at home and relax. Sorry, that was a South Park reference. Instead,
I feel like anytime I've heard arguments about psychedelics being illegal, so quick side note, it always comes down to, like, well, do you want those people behind the wheel of a car driving on the road? And I've always wondered, like, who would take LSD or mushrooms and want to go anywhere? Like,
oh yeah, no.
Why do you want to get behind the wheel of a car?
That's a great point. I mean, I'm sure there are people but there are people who do, but I mean, I just want to walk and walk forever, like I don't want to get in my fucking truck, with no interest whatsoever. Anyway, yes, good point.
Yeah. Anyway, you're right though. Like if the legal game was changed, if psychedelics were legal to purchase and to sell and to possess and to grow, we wouldn't have to rely on people self-reporting. We could like freely study these things and collect data, and it wouldn't have to be like incredibly expensive, subject to all these regulations,
right?
Where they're like actually collecting data from people who've done it illegally in order to fill out their studies, because they just like can't get enough drugs because they're so expensive.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I think like if this was legal, we would have so much more data to bear out what the study is saying.
Yeah.
That's like official, legitimate. And I think self-reporting, like you're saying, it's fairly consistent. I don't want to say it's entirely right or wrong, but anecdotes are important, and I agree. We should believe people when they talk about their experiences.
Yeah, I mean, and the reality is like, if somehow we found out psilocybin didn't do all these great things, if that's what the research bore out after real research was allowed to be done on a larger scale, or at least without, consequence, then okay, then we find that out. You know what I mean? And then we're done. Like, and great. Okay. I mean, not great. Like, I hope that all of this, continues to be a positive, situation.
Yeah.
But, like I'd rather know than not, you know what I mean? And so
it's like with cigarettes, like doctors used to give them to everyone, and we finally learned like you can't do that to pregnant women or, to children, because they'll get lung cancer or emphysema or all these other problems.
Yeah. Yeah. Not that I want people dying, to test this stuff, but
no, but like you can't, like there is no lethal dose of mushrooms, I think, that anyone has found.
As far as we know. Yeah.
There are mushrooms that are poisonous, sure. But like when it comes to entheogenic mushrooms, we're just talking about like people getting more or less bedridden,
Yeah. I mean, as far as we know, there's an upper limit to this sort of thing. So like, the risks honestly are minimal. And I mean, it always begs the question, why is this stuff illegal in the first place? And
maybe because it opens the doors of perception.
Yeah. Or maybe now it can cancel your Ozempic subscription that you didn't really need in the first place, unless you're a diabetic, then of course. But
yeah, there's a lot of money at stake too.
Yeah, absolutely. So do we want to get through the rest of this list?
Yep, there's still a couple other items.
Yeah.
So the next one is actually something that I just mentioned a second ago: increased resilience to stress and decreased relapse.
Phenomenal.
Exploration of the interaction between the MGB axis and components of the stress response system, like the HPA axis and amygdala function, could potentially increase overlapping resilience strategies and decrease rates of relapse in stress-related psychiatric disorders after psychedelic therapy.
Yeah, I mean, well, anything that manages stress, like, let's go.
Definitely.
Stress is the killer.
Oh my gosh.
Flat out.
Almost everybody in the first world has to have such low-level chronic inflammation like all the time, because we are constantly stressed.
Right. Yeah, and to be more, just resilient, like it's not just management, like it's also the resiliency, and keeping from relapsing. Phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. The next one is positive mood and emotional changes. Psychedelics are associated with a sustained shift in emotional reactivity from a negative to a positive bias. Can confirm.
Yeah, same.
Ayahuasca treatment, a psychedelic intervention, was associated with a correlation between larger reductions of CRP, which is an inflammatory biomarker, and lower depressive symptoms 48 hours later in patients with treatment-resistant depression. So it only takes 48 hours for that change to occur.
Right.
Ayahuasca also showed a modulation of serum brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is BDNF, which is associated with neuronal growth and survival. So it actually helps your neurons grow and subsist for longer periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
Furthermore, psychedelic therapy is associated with altered social processing and potentially increased levels of perceived connectivity, which can strengthen resilience against stressors. So this is a big thing, and I often bring up how social life is incredibly important. It's key to our health as human beings, because that's how we evolved, was as a social species. And when we isolate ourselves, we suffer physically and mentally.
Yes.
Like dementia can set on so much more quickly in someone who's isolated versus somebody who has a very rich and healthy social life. So,
and the internet is not a replacement, folks, for that. Just to be sure, just to be clear.
you need physical interaction with
Gotta
people.
be in the room.
Yeah, there's nothing like it.
Right.
There is no replacement. Especially for physical touch, which amongst friends and family, like, it's just little things every now and then, but they make such a big difference.
For
like
sure.
Just touching someone on the shoulder, squeezing their hand, giving them a hug, all those things, they feel so incredibly good.
Right.
And for a really long period of time. And you can't get that online.
Yeah.
So the point here is that social processing is what's altered. So, like earlier in this, we mentioned that your emotional reactivity bias is shifted from negative to positive.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have social interactions with people, if you're like a depressed introvert, which I have definitely been at certain points in my life, it can shift your bias to where you see those social interactions not as negatives, but as positive.
Right.
And you feel more connected to the people around you after the interaction.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think too, like, when I read this, yes, it makes sense to me. Why? Because ultimately, I mean, I think you're, that psilocybiome, right? Or like psilocybin, the mycelial network, shall we say, of the universe. Okay. I think you are literally, when you are in a symbiotic relationship with mushrooms, when you are, on them, when you are consuming them. And a lot of this is bearing that out. That's a big part of what that MGB axis is, as I understand it. Okay. And so you are literally more connected, not just with people, but with the universe at large. You are, if connected makes you uncomfortable, that's fine. It would make me a little uncomfortable too. You are more aware. How about that?
Yeah. Well, just to your point, I think other scientific studies have also talked about this, where people who take mushrooms feel that spiritual connection to other living beings.
Right. And in my opinion, it's real. Maybe other people want to argue against that, but I think that it's very real. And I think that the results that this paper is talking about is part of the proof of that. So yeah, again, just another amazing benefit. And I just love this direction of, again, looking at everything holistically, the holobiont.
Yeah. And as a person who has come from like a scientific training background, I've certainly heard people say more than one time that when you're talking about these sorts of spiritual feelings, like I would say something like, well, if you feel more connected with all living things around you, all consciousness in the universe even, maybe you're experiencing an aspect of reality that is always there, but you can't always perceive it.
Right.
And certain materialistic scientific people might say something like, just because you have a feeling doesn't mean that it's real. It's just a chemical reaction happening in your brain. And like, that's such a depressing outlook. I mean, there's no more proof for that than there is proof for the feeling being a real experience of reality. Although I think this is proving that there is actually some evidence that the experiences we have are far more interconnected with the beings that are in our environment than we previously thought. And that delineation between one species and another, when it comes to like the internal environment of your body, you can't exactly draw those lines.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, even if just within that you all live within the same mile, or something like that. I mean,
Sure.
like, however you want to do that kind of connectivity, like there's a lot of different ways to slice that. Yeah. Now, I mean, there's one more. Do we want to get that one more in?
Yeah. So the final point that they make is about anti-inflammatory effects. So serotonergic psychedelics possess immunomodulatory properties. In vitro studies have shown that psilocin and DMT reduced levels of pro-inflammatory proteins. Additionally, ayahuasca reduced C-reactive protein levels in both TRD patients and healthy controls compared to placebo.
Yeah. I mean, again, amazing.
Yeah.
Anti-inflammatory properties, like right on.
So this is kind of part of what they were talking about earlier with, I guess, increasing your resilience and you being less reactive to stress. Getting rid of those inflammatory molecules is part of that. Mm-hmm. So like when your body is not inflamed, you actually have the resources, the energy to deal with whatever comes to you.
Right.
If you're chronically stressed, if your body's autoimmune system is constantly engaged in this battle of survival, it's not going to be at its peak performance.
Right.
So stop waging war on yourself and start relaxing a little bit more.
Yeah.
Is basically what I'm getting from that last point.
Yeah, and I mean, all of this, it's not even, and maybe the paper did bring it up at some point. I mean, even just like what all of these factors that we listed off, like the 5 or 6 factors that we listed off, like all of those ways that can improve sleep. And then that's a whole other game changer.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The lack of stress, the anti-inflammatory, all that, like, once you're getting better sleep, better quality sleep, everything changes at that point.
I feel like I have an antidote for that. I mean, we both do. Mm-hmm. Anytime we take psychedelics, we sleep really, really well.
Oh, yeah. Dreams might be weird, but yeah, sleep really well.
Yeah, like 10 hours or something.
Yeah.
It's just a deep, calm sleep where you don't care about anything and you fall asleep really quickly. And, like, I am a person who does have chronic sleep issues. Like, I constantly battle insomnia. And I just feel like what you said had a lot of truth in it. Like if we did psychedelics more often, maybe that wouldn't be so much of an issue.
Yeah, I mean, again, this isn't even looking at the meta effects, of all of this, and that's not a flaw. It's just consider that, and it's mind blowing. It's amazing to consider. Now, we're not saying everybody has to go out and do psychedelics or anything like that. I don't think I hope
we're
nobody
not being
out there
prescriptive.
Yeah, by no means ever. Okay. I mean, I was straight edge for over 40 years. Like, don't you worry. I understand all of the concerns and if you don't want to do it, there's nothing wrong with that. Okay. And these effects could be, might be had through other ways as well, for sure. But, the bad rap that this stuff gets really has to come to an end, because as far as we can tell, as far as the research is bearing out, this is amazing. I mean, it's remarkable what this allows for, just for your own health, to say nothing about your perceptions and cosmic consciousness, that I think anybody could use. I mean, all of us, me included, can all use help with now and again.
Yeah, definitely, because we do get sucked into our daily lives and it becomes an addiction sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
So psychedelics actually are great for breaking people out of those addictions and forming new neuronal pathways.
Yeah.
Which I think we've talked about on the show previously.
Yeah.
So there's just so many benefits to taking psychedelics. And like you said, you don't have to take psychedelics to get there. But I think they are one of the quickest ways to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it's not a shortcut, folks.
No.
These, we co-evolved with psychedelics.
Exactly.
If we didn't, they wouldn't have this effect on us that they do.
Yeah, I mean, it would appear, also by the research, that this is by evolutionary design.
Yes, and there's a whole section in the paper that talks about the evolutionary perspective.
Right.
So I hope you put this link in the show notes.
It will be in the show notes for people to read the whole thing.
Please read this paper. It is so interesting.
Yeah.
But they do talk about the evolutionary history of mushrooms and microbes and humans.
Yeah, amazing paper. So
and
definitely
how that all comes together.
Exactly. So definitely check that out in the show notes. Yeah, I mean, this is a conversation that just needs to keep happening, and from people, well, I don't like to think we're rational, but whatever, people think we're rational. So especially from rational people, more rational people, though I have a lot of respect for the non-rational. So anyway,
I think we're becoming less rational with each day that passes.
This is true. Yeah. Feeling that.
Yeah, it's okay. I feel like we can just go crazy together and we're still happy. So awesome. Let's keep going.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of strange dreams, wild dreams.
Let's open the doors of perception.
Let's do that through a movie. So
an incredible movie.
Yeah, one of your favorites.
Yes.
You've told me that for many years.
So we're talking about What Dreams May Come. This is starring Robin Williams.
Yes.
And yes, this movie has been one of my favorites for my entire life. I've watched it more times than I can ever count.
Yeah. So it came out in 98. Was, I think, kind of a dud when it came out. Like, I don't think it impressed. And I don't think it did so well financially, which blows my mind, because I'm with you. This movie's amazing. Like, this is great stuff. Now, I have never read the book, and I am well aware that the book is very different, or at least in some ways it goes deeper than the movie does into a lot of different aspects, say, of how heaven works, because this is a movie about a guy dying, and like basically, his in the end, his whole family, over time, ends up dying. His wife, spoiler alert, I mean, it's only been out for 30 years, but his wife ends up killing herself. And, there's lots of tragic stuff within this. And so it's exploring the afterlife in a very deep way. And, it's just at the cusp of when CGI was becoming really viable, and it didn't have to be like an insane budget like Jurassic Park. And so they got to do some really creative things in this. If anything, it is a beautiful movie. It is a gorgeous film to watch. It is a painting on celluloid, in a very real way. And so it's worth it even for that alone. But I think that there's a lot said here that is worth, diving into. And we got a question that came in at fu@xxtech.net. That's just stands for follow up. It's fu at
xxxtech.net.
Nice. And I want to reread the question here. Okay. And then we're going to dive in on our thoughts with all of this. So, and we warned people ahead of time. You had plenty of time to watch this thing. Hell, you've had a month and a half. So, so here we go. Hey, Dr. Sovryn, I loved the recent episode on heaven and hell. I'm curious what your thoughts are on the afterlife depicted in Richard Matheson's What Dreams May Come. The copy I read had an afterword that talked about how Matheson spent years researching depictions of the afterlife from different religions, and that what he describes in the book is what he believed to be most likely after seeing a lot of repeating ideas. Feel free to comment on the movie as well. It's one of my all-time favorites. I can remember seeing it in the theater when I was 14 and being captivated by the imagery. As someone who's dealt with depression and suicidal ideation throughout my life, I've always been drawn to the depictions of the afterlife in this book/movie, even though I don't believe that an afterlife exists. So right on.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and this gets into what I think that she asked the question about, like, yeah, our conceptions of the afterlife, like, is that an afterlife? Because you're kind of coming, like, what is an afterlife? You know what I mean? I don't really believe in an afterlife either,
it's different in nature than our current life. And I find it interesting that the writer doesn't believe in the afterlife, but is drawn to these depictions.
Well, I don't know if Richard Matheson doesn't believe
No, the person who wrote into our show.
The questioner, yes. Sorry, yes. Continue.
So they don't believe in the afterlife, and yet they're still drawn to this imagery. So I wonder if there's something, subconscious there, maybe like, sort of compass putting in a certain direction, because I feel like, and I could be wrong about this, but usually when most people say they don't believe in the afterlife, it's either because they're just really depressed and they can't imagine something that wonderful actually happening to them, or it's because there is no firm evidence. There's no way to like go there and come back and say for sure, except for like people who have near-death experiences, and who wants to listen to those because there's such a small percentage of people. Like there's no really good hard scientific way to prove that one exists, and I think that's why a lot of people don't believe it, or at least claim that they don't, because they don't want to like ruin their reputations. So I don't know what the writer believes or why they say they don't believe in the afterlife, and I'd definitely be curious to hear that. But I think it's important to state, the afterlife specifically, not heaven or hell. And it's also, I guess, the word afterlife is kind of misleading in the sense that you wouldn't be like biologically alive. You'd be more of like just an ethereal, energetic being awaiting another body transplant, sort of.
Sure.
At least I think that's kind of a summary of what we described when talking about like the afterlife and also reincarnation.
Yeah. Yeah, again, I mean, it gets down to like define afterlife. Like if it's the Christian concept or most Abrahamic concepts of the afterlife, yeah, it's nonsense. Like what the hell are you talking about? And in fact, any shall we say, spiritual system that describes the afterlife with high detail, I am inclined to not believe.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, and the reason for that is like, what?
Like you actually went there and got to paint a picture and
write
down all these things
and
then came back?
Yeah. Because, now granted, I come from a lineage, from Judaism, and there are wild things described with some incredible detail, but that detail also often comes off as poetry, because poetry is the point where language meets the ineffable.
Yeah, you're trying to describe something that's very confusing that people can't comprehend.
Exactly. And that's why it comes off as poetic, and it comes off as very short, sometimes even terse, because it's like, we have no words. We don't know. We can't talk about it.
It's just this thing.
Right. Like, and so, yeah, so anytime I run into that, like, oh yeah, there's this many virgins, you get a house, you get all that. It's
the
like,
streets are gold, there's pearly
Yeah.
gates. Okay, yeah, and they have china set out on the dinner tables too.
Exactly.
I'm sure they follow dinner etiquette like we do. Right? Because why wouldn't they?
Exactly. So when I hear those descriptions of the afterlife, I'm always like, no.
You're just making it sound, it's anthropomorphizing, but for your specific culture, it just doesn't work.
Yeah, no, you can see it as part of a larger authoritarian infrastructure of punishments and rewards trying to control a people. Like, you just know, you can feel it that's what that is.
Yeah, it's not a universal truth.
Right. Now, to speak to Richard Matheson's writing, and of course it's based on an original novel from 1978 that he wrote. And of course he's done other, like, maybe not Afterlife, but post-apocalyptic stuff. He did The Omega Man, of course, with the greatest actor of all time, Chuck Heston, or the work that was based on. Don't worry about the Will Smith movie. But
I'm sorry we didn't read the book before we came into the show.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm aware of, some of the, like, he pulled from a lot of different sources. Tons. So he's not just coming from, like, he's not just coming in, like we were just saying, he's like, here's all the details. No, he's pulling from like a lot of different sources and, trying to create like this sort of like unified possibility from scraps. He's made a quilt of the concept of the afterlife. Okay. Which is often the best we can do, with our ancient sources or our not so ancient sources, to try and get to some kind of truth of what things may be like.
Right. And the great thing about that approach is that you can still retain those threads of truth within the quilt, even if there's a lot of fluff.
Right.
I'm taking this metaphor way too far.
Yeah.
But the point is,
Yeah.
I think the movie What Dreams May Come certainly got that message across, because there's very clear lines that are said by certain characters in the movie saying, like, this is your reality, you're creating it, you're in control, this is coming out of your mind, this is you.
Yeah.
This experience that you're having in the afterlife.
Yeah.
And not everybody gets the same experience, like whatever universe you create, it's yours. It's private. You get to live here. Sometimes people can visit you, but they have their own.
Yeah. I mean, just a quick comment to play off of some of what we were saying earlier. Like, when you read about, say, like the Christian heaven or even some other Abrahamic concepts of heaven, it's like, oh yeah, these streets of gold and all this other stuff. And I'm like, who's that heaven for? Because that ain't me. Like, heaven for me is the GUI on Windows 7. No, I'm kidding. That's not heaven for me. Close. No, but I mean, heaven for me, is the woodlands. It looked like the fucking Ewok village. That's what my heaven would look like, and I know that. You know what I mean? Something along those lines. So, like, this universal idea that, oh no, we know what all humans really want things to look like. It just shows the really limited, mentality, the limited perception that a lot of these people carry. Now, that's not the case with this movie, because they make it, Cuba Gooding Jr. here talking to Robin Williams' character makes it very clear that, like, yeah, you, and like you were just saying, Ellen, like, you create this, and part of what blows my mind, and I want to talk about that a little bit more, but part of what blows my mind within that is everything that they were actually saying about the afterlife. And I don't know if this is whose idea this was, if it was Richard Matheson's and somehow this plays out in the book, or if it was something, done by the people making the movie or what. But you can actually invert all of that.
It's still true when you're alive.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Except for the part about, like, jumping off of cliffs.
Yeah.
He learned to do that really quickly in the afterlife.
Yeah, you don't learn it that quickly in the real world. No.
Please. It takes a lot more time.
Yeah, please don't, folks. But so much of that, like, is true for reality, is true for, when you're alive, and I love that. And I think that's, in some ways, again, I can't speak to the book, but in some ways, I think that's really the better way to watch the movie, is to understand that.
Yeah, because in the movie, their beliefs kind of build the foundation of wherever they're at. Right.
Like Robin Williams, when he dies and he ends up in quote unquote heaven or in the afterlife, it's all like a painting, like a literal painting. Yeah, that his wife made. And of course that makes sense.
Yeah, because he loves her. He loves her artwork.
Right.
He's always seen her work as idyllic. And of course he would want to be there for eternity.
Yeah.
Because he's surrounded by, like, what he perceives to be her love.
Yeah. 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 So, and so much of that is very beautiful. The thing is, and I'll say this again, like, don't apply this to the afterlife. Like apply this to life right now, in my opinion. But, I get it that a lot of people are going to look at it that way. And, I think Matheson was a Christian Scientist. I don't think he was Mormon. But Mormons have this incredibly positive outlook on what the afterlife is like, if you live a righteous life at first. Okay. And, cause like their belief is, oh yeah, you end up becoming a god yourself and you end up like owning your own solar system. I mean, talk about, like creating your own world. Hell, you're creating worlds. And, like that, those kinds of concepts obviously are very, very attractive to people. And I don't want people to, like, I'm not insulting Mormons. Okay. There's plenty that I could do that about, because it's not even their idea. Like they lifted that straight out of Judaism.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Talmud says it straight that, and there's another text, it's not the Bahir, but it talks about the 310 worlds that every Zadik will inherit, which just means righteous. I mean, it means other things, but That's the bottom line. But that yeah, you'll inherit 310 worlds. Now, a lot of people go crazy with that whole thing. But, I mean, like during the Renaissance, when there was the arguments with Copernicus and everything else, it's like, oh, are there, is there alien life on other worlds? Judaism was like, well, yeah, I'm getting
Obviously.
310 of them. Come on, man. And then you have, Maimonides, who is saying, oh no, the stars are living beings. I mean, like so many of these ideas, like you guys just all lifted it. But anyway, that's fine. Okay.
There is a strange structural quirk in the Mishnah, a Jewish text of which the Talmud is a commentary on. Compiled around the year 200 CE, it is a massive 6-order code of law. It deals with everything: agriculture, festivals, marriage, civil damages, and ritual. Almost no subject is left untouched. To the average reader, it can feel like a dry, technical manual. It is deeply concerned with the how of life. How far can you walk on the Sabbath? How much grain do you owe the priest? But then we get to the very end. The final tractate is called Uktzin. It deals with the stalks of fruits, literally the stems. It is considered one of the most obscure, difficult, and frankly boring sections of the entire canon. And then, in the very last paragraph, Mishnah Uktzin, chapter 3, verse 12, the text suddenly breaks character. It stops talking about fruit stems and looks up at the stars. The sage Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi speaks here, and he delivers a promise that has baffled commentators for 1800 years. He says, "In the future, the Holy One, blessed be He, will cause every single tzaddik to inherit 310 worlds." He derives this from a verse in Proverbs 8:21, "To cause those who love me to inherit substance, and I will fill their treasuries." The Hebrew word for substance is yesh, spelt yod shin. In Gematria, a powerful system of numerology within Judaism, yod equals the number 10, and shin equals 300, total being 310. Inheriting substance means inheriting 310 worlds. Now, in the rationalist view of Judaism, championed by Maimonides, it would tell us this 310 worlds is allegory for intellectual enlightenment. But what if this was meant to be taken literally? What if we treated this text as a piece of cosmological cartography? If a so-called righteous human being is promised an inheritance of 310 distinct worlds, what does that actually look like? Are we talking about planets, dimensions, simulated realities? And more importantly, if you inherit a galaxy, what are you supposed to do with it? To answer this, we have to look outside of Rabbinic Judaism. We need to perform a comparative triangulation between the 3 great traditions that promise us a kingdom: the Rabbinic tradition, the Mormon tradition, and the Islamic tradition, particularly as it relates to Sufism. When we do this, we discover something shocking. If you take the Jewish 310 worlds literally, they don't look Jewish, and they certainly don't look Mormon. They look almost exactly like the third view found in the eschatology of Islam. Let's establish the geography. The Mishnah uses the word olamot, worlds. In modern astrophysics, we might think of planets, and this may reflect Mormonism's view. But in ancient cosmology, a better translation might be realms. Think of the cosmology of the Mortal Kombat universe. Yes, that Mortal Kombat. You have Earthrealm, our standard physics. You have Outworld, a realm of magic and distinct biology. You have the Netherrealm. Each of these isn't just a different location, it is a different frequency of reality. If the Tzaddik inherits 310 worlds, perhaps they are inheriting 310 distinct planes of existence, 310 variations on the theme of being. But ownership implies function. If I give you a car, you drive it. If I give you a house, you live in it. If the so-called God gives you 310 realities, what is the function of that ownership? This is where the theology fractures. Let's look at the architect model. This is most famously represented by the theology of the Mormons. In Mormon theology, particularly in the Doctrine and Covenants, section 132, verse 20, the text speaks of those who enter the new and everlasting covenant of marriage. It says, "Then shall they be gods, because they have no end. Then shall they be above all, because all things are subject unto them." This is the concept of exaltation. If we view the 310 worlds through a Mormon lens, these worlds are construction sites. The righteous individual, having graduated from mortality, enters the celestial kingdom and essentially joins the family business. God is a creator. Therefore, the ultimate reward for his children is to become creators themselves. In this model, if you inherit 310 worlds, you are the God of those worlds. You are organizing matter. You are terraforming. You are, potentially, populating these worlds with spirit children. It is a theology of labor. It projects the Protestant work ethic onto eternity. It says, the work doesn't stop, it just scales up. But there is a problem with fitting the Mishnah, and thus the oral Torah, into this box. The verse in Proverbs says, lehanchil, which means to cause them to inherit. It implies receiving a finished estate, not a vacant lot. The Mormon view is dynamic and active. The Jewish text implies something received. So now we'll turn to the second model, the scholar. This is the traditional rabbinic view, championed by the great medieval philosopher Maimonides. In his book Mishneh Torah, Laws of Repentance, Hilchot Teshuvah, chapter 8, Maimonides is very clear. He writes, "In the world to come, there is no eating, no drinking, and no procreation. Only the righteous sitting with crowns on their heads, basking in the radiance of the divine presence." To Maimonides, 310 worlds is code. It refers to the depth of intellectual perception. The crown on the head is the intellect. The food is knowledge. If Maimonides is right, then the 310 worlds are 310 layers of data, 310 degrees of abstraction. The Zadik becomes a disembodied consciousness, surfing the infinite web of God's wisdom. It is a theology of intellect. But let's be honest, when the Mishnah promises yesh, or substance, it feels like a letdown to say, oh, it just means you'll be very, very smart. The human soul craves environment. We crave beauty. We crave the sensory. This brings us to the third view, the view of the monarch. And this is found most vividly in Islam. If you read the Hadith literature and the surahs of the Quran regarding Jannah, the garden, you find a description of the afterlife that is unapologetically physical. It is not a place of work, like the Mormon view, nor is it a place of abstract disembodiment, like the Maimonidean view. It is a place of restored perfection. There is a famous narration in Sahih Muslim, Book 1, Hadith 363, involving Moses asking God about the lowest-ranking person in paradise. God describes a man who is the last to be released from the fire. He approaches the garden, and he thinks it is full. But God says to him, "Go and enter paradise, for you will have the like of the world and 10 times like it." Let that sink in. 10 times like it. Even the lowest resident of Jannah inherits a physical dominion 10 times the size of earth. But look at the details. The Quran in Surah Al-Waqi'ah, the inevitable, describes couches woven with gold, immortal youths serving drinks that do not intoxicate, fruit of every kind, and the Hur al-Ain, companions with wide, lovely eyes. It is a realm of sensory delight. Rivers of milk, bricks of silver, musk-scented soil. Now, bring the Mishnah back into the room. It says, "The Holy One, blessed be He, will cause every single tzaddik to inherit 310 worlds." If we interpret this literally, the tzaddik is not looking for a job as a god. They are not looking to be a floating brain. The tzaddik is being given the keys to an interdimensional tapestry of pleasure. Imagine the Mortal Kombat realms again, but stripped of the conflict with Shang Tsung and Shao Kahn. World number 1 could be a realm of crystalline geology, where the physics allows for floating mountains, similar to the descriptions of the Zohar's palaces of sapphire. World number 50 could be a realm of pure botany, where the tree of life concept is realised physically. Forests that span continents, where the fruit tastes like the very concept of sustenance. World number 310 could be a realm of pure acoustics, a world made of sound and vibration, where the tzaddik can perceive the song of creation as a physical landscape. And these realms could harmonise with each other, and you could even exist in more than one at the same time. In this model, the 310 worlds are a royal estate. The tzaddik is the monarch of these realms. They do not create them on their own. It's a co-creative process with the universe that created them. The so-called righteous do not populate them with children. They are populated with the malachim, angels, and the divine essences designed for the tzaddik's delight. This aligns strangely well with the Hebrew concept of oneg, translated as pleasure. The Sabbath is called Oneg Shabbat. The Garden of Eden is Gan Eden, the garden of pleasure. Judaism, at its core, believes the physical world is good. It just believes it is currently broken. The 310 worlds are the promise that the physical world will be fixed, multiplied by 300 and handed back to you. And the reason it's suggested that these are more like realms than physical planets is due to Kabbalah being explicit in that there are only 18,000 habitable planets in the universe. If the 310 worlds were merely planets, as the Mormons may have interpreted it, then there would only ever be 58 righteous individuals, to ever be, as the Christians would call it, saved. Of course, the idea that only a very few individuals will have a place in the world to come is a notion with some substance to it, according to Dr. Brian Sovryn, but that is a conversation for another time. But for now, we have a convergence. The Mormon view gives us the scale, worlds without number. The rabbinic view gives us the connection, the focus on the divine presence. But the Islamic view gives us the texture. It gives us the language to understand what inheriting substance might actually feel like. It suggests that the ultimate reward is not the abandonment of the human experience, but the perfection of it. For the mystic, this teaching validates the infinite expandability of one's soul. It suggests that your consciousness is not designed for a single frequency. You are currently trapped in Earth realm, one bandwidth of reality. But the promise of the 310 worlds is that your capacity for experience is wider than the universe itself. You are not meant to just be at peace. You are meant to be an explorer of the divine imagination. For the staunch scientist, even if you strip away the God, the verses, and the metaphysics, there is a profound psychological truth here. The concept of yesh, substance, speaks to the deepest human anxiety, the fear of impermanence, the fear of entropy. We build, we love, and it turns to dust. It all feels like ayin, nothingness. The human condition is a desperate search for yesh, for something that stays, something that has weight. Whether you find that in art, in legacy, in physics, or in love, we are all trying to inherit substance. We are all trying to build a world that doesn't fade away. The Mishnah ends with this promise for a reason. It is telling us that despite the fragility of fruit stalks and the decay of history, the destination of the human journey is not the void. The destination is physical and immortal. Which leads to one last view to include. It is the view found in the shadowed corners of Jewish history. And strangely enough, it finds its echo in one of the most famous magical texts of antiquity, the Mithras liturgy. This perspective asks a terrifying question. What if waiting for death to experience any of this is the trap? Sects of Judaism, often considered heretical by the rabbis, believed that the distinction between this world, Olam Hazeh, and the world to come, Olam Haba, was a lie invented by religious authorities to keep people docile. They argued that the world to come isn't a place you go to when your heart stops. It is a state of being that you crash into right now. The groups often taught of redemption of the flesh, not just the soul. They suggested that true spiritual power, true yesh, must be strong enough to permeate the physical body and grant it a kind of functional immortality in this life. In this view, if the 310 worlds are only available after you rot in the ground, they aren't substance. They are a consolation prize. This aligns chillingly well with the Mithras liturgy, a magical text from Roman Egypt. This liturgy isn't a prayer for a good afterlife. It is a technical manual for apathanatismos, immortalization. The practitioner doesn't ask to go to heaven. They perform a ritual of rhythmic breathing and visualization to inhale the rays of the sun and achieve palingenesis, rebirth, while still standing in their physical boots. They proclaim, I who was born a mortal, and today reborn by thee, and having been made holy, I breathe. In this radical view, which is compiled alongside a multitude of Jewish mystical texts, the 310 worlds are not distant planets or some intellectual achievement. They are augmented reality layers sitting right on top of this one. They are here, now. The tzaddik isn't the person who dies and goes to a celestial resort. The tzaddik is the person who becomes so alive, so vibrant, so tuned in to the frequency of the cosmos, that they unlock these 310 dimensions while they are walking down the street. To inherit the substance means to make this life denser. It means enhancing your biology, your mind, and your environment until the mundane world catches fire with the spiritual. It suggests that true immortality isn't about escaping Earth to go to a better place. It's about becoming a conduit that forces the 310 worlds to crash land here. It is about enhancing the life in your veins and the life of everyone around you until death becomes irrelevant because the life force you are channeling is simply too loud to be silenced. Don't wait for the inheritance. Take the keys. Unlock the worlds. Live.
So even this concept of an afterlife, of you going into your own world and kind of your own paradise, like, that plays in a lot of different traditions. So I don't even think that that's crazy for them to say. But then is that like an afterlife, or what is that? We have to keep coming back to that question of, what is an afterlife? What does that mean? Right?
Yeah, and that's an interesting question in perspective of this movie, because you do learn throughout the progress that the movie makes that, like, you, or at least Robin Williams' character starts out in this beautiful, idyllic painting world, and then he visits other realities. So he goes to like his daughter's vision, which is like a shared city.
Right.
And he gets to see people on their journey into another life, like into another body, into being born again. So there's a sort of, I guess, waiting room that is your own created heaven. But then you can go to this place that's a little more communal where people are actually making the transition into another life.
Yeah.
So is that an afterlife, or what sort of a process is that?
Right. And I mean, and this is also where I feel it gets very Mormon, because you get to be with your whole family eventually, if they want to reveal themselves.
If you want to.
Yeah. Like they all, again, spoiler alerts, they all get to live together in the end. I mean, my understanding is that the movie ending, there was a couple different endings and it's different from the book and whatever. Okay. But like in the end of this film, like it really, honestly, it presented a very Mormon interpretation of things, which I found to be very interesting, to see that.
Well, Cuba Gooding Jr.'s character also says, like, if you really want to be with someone, if you think about them, then they'll come to you.
Right.
And they can come visit you. And all it takes is that will, that desire, and focus.
Yeah. Now, I think it's important to talk about the suicide aspect of this. It's definitely like, it's the crux of the movie. It's the darkest part, of the film. And this is a very tough subject to talk about, and you want to be very gentle with it. And I mean this from like deeply, like trigger warning, we're talking about suicide here. And I know that can affect some people. Okay. The depiction within this, what I want to praise the film for, at least, is that, yes, you can save those people. And the idea that, it's never been done, it can't be done, blah, 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 and Robin Williams basically just says, shut the fuck up. I'm going to go do it.
It's the best scene in the movie.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Where he's like, I'll tell you when it's gone too far.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. It's so great.
And the doctor's telling him like, no, I've never seen it before. It's never been done before. And Robin Williams was like, you ain't seen nothing yet, Chief.
Yeah. It's so great. It's so great.
Yeah. And he is so dead set on getting back with his soulmate.
Yes. And it's also in some ways the antidote to, I think to aspects of suicide dependent upon the person, that like, you just don't give up on people. Of course, don't give up on yourself, but don't give up on people, and it's so beautiful to have that so like explicitly and beautifully stated as only Robin Williams can do. Yeah.
I mean, it is really tragic in the movie because the character who commits suicide, she's lost her husband, who's the love of her life. She's lost her 2 children, which were teenagers.
Yeah.
She just feels like there's nothing left because, once you've had the best, where do you go from there?
Yeah, I mean, because it's really something that this is, again, a very tender subject, but the whole idea really comes out of Catholicism. Catholicism, I mean, there's others, but Catholicism's kind of the big one that says, if that this is the unforgivable sin. If you commit suicide, you're going to hell, and that's it. It's all she wrote. It's done.
That's what this movie is talking against.
Exactly.
So it's very clearly made this point that there is no judgment. There's no heaven and hell. This isn't about somebody deciding good and bad.
Right.
Eternal judgments of evil and good. This is about what she believes and what she can't accept that she has done.
Well, and this is the nuance. Like, this is the nuance within that religious concept, is that her universe was gone. Her husband's gone. Her children are gone. Like, her world doesn't exist anymore. You know what I mean? And like, so I'm not saying she did the right thing. I'm just saying you can understand. And a lot of people do this without picking up the knife or the gun.
Oh, yeah.
They just do it slowly. I can think of my grandmother. We're same thing. She, like everyone that she ever knew for 70 years was dying, and her own children were dying before she was, and so like, Yeah, like her world's disappearing. And so she just slowly starts, a woman who could shovel the driveway at 74 years old on her goddamned own, walk to the bank that's miles away, didn't care, in the snow, the whole thing. I don't mean to sound like, oh, back in my day. No, that was my grandma.
She was tough.
She was that tough, just this tough old Jewish woman. And, she could take all of that, but everything dying around her, no. And I totally understand. Why, like, suddenly she's getting this disease, and it wasn't because she was old. It's because she was depressed. It's because, like, again, everything died around her, and you can't I can't fault her for that. Like, I understand, and doctors can't understand that. Most people can't understand that. And so that's my point, is like the idea that, it's just this blanket rule. Oh, you commit suicide, you're done. Like, a lot of people commit suicide without committing suicide. And also, I can completely understand why this person feels that way, and again, I'm really trying to be so gentle with this, but it's so important to talk about.
And I think the hardest part for people is that feeling of isolation,
Mm-hmm.
when they've lost something or someone that they love very much, feeling that they're separated from that person.
Right.
And I know this is going to sound so incredibly corny, but like the separation is, in a sense, something that you can overcome.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
If you focus on that person, if you think about the good times with them, they come back to you
Right.
in those experiences, in those memories, in those feelings. And that is the connection that you can maintain with them to bring them closer.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to make any claims that like their spirit will come visit you or something like that, because
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But at the very least, you can celebrate the good times you've had with those people and honor their memory by doing so, and not focus on the fact that now they're gone, you can't see them anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's a matter of perspective.
Yeah.
And I think that's what this movie was trying to say, was that like the woman who committed suicide, she didn't think that she had that connection with her soulmate anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But from Robin Williams' perspective, he's in his afterlife, which is her painting, and she actually adds to the painting in real life.
Yeah.
She like paints in a whole new tree,
Yeah.
and he can see it. He's experiencing it.
Yeah.
And this is something that Cuba Gooding Jr. is like, oh, I've never seen this before. I had no idea that soulmates could have this kind of connection, because it's so rare. But like, she's actually communicating with him in the afterlife.
Right.
And he wanted to like yell to her, I love you, I'm still here. And in some ways he was able to, like, he kind of like helped her to write in her journal that he still exists.
Yeah.
And she was just having a really hard time accepting that. She couldn't accept it.
Yeah.
That like, even though he wasn't physically there, he was still spiritually or emotionally there.
Yeah. I mean, it's powerful stuff. And I'm aware that the book like delves into that a lot more of that paranormal kind of stuff. But I mean, this is the area where I disagree with the movie. Like, the idea that the dead can have some kind of, just on its own, can have some kind of influence, shall we say, on the living realm. That doesn't fit within my concepts of the cycle of life, and shall we say the cycle of the soul. However, this is a spot, I mean, we can talk about that a little bit if you want, but this is a spot where it's more proof of this movie's ideology is far better for the living than it is the dead. Because the living can do that all day long. Like, can we remote view? Do we have telekinesis, ESP, all of these kinds of things? Yeah. And so like, can you communicate, telepathically from great distances with someone, maybe even through art and things like that? Sure. All of those things apply very well to the living, but as far as the dead,
why would it be any different for the dead if you're talking about energetic or psionic abilities?
Because the dead are in a bit of a different state. Of course, this gets into the concept of Sheol, which we've talked about. And where, King Solomon, wasn't really Solomon, but King Solomon makes it pretty clear the dead know not anything, nor do they have anything more to do under the sun.
And I don't know. I don't know, because we've talked about possessions before, and I think you've said something a little different.
Yes. Okay. But that is, yeah. So the finer point, you're right. The finer point is that's inhabiting someone else's body. And if that's what's going on, different story.
Like
right?
in the scene where Robin Williams is kind of like enforcing his will on her hand to write "I still exist" in her journal.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how exactly that's working. And I hate to be that like fine point on it. I mean, you can call,
How would you define how the process works?
I don't know.
Right.
maybe
it doesn't matter. The point is that like it can happen.
Right. Maybe. But my understanding is them having like something to say or some kind of influence. To quote Arnold in Terminator 2, it doesn't work that way. And that is my understanding. And that could end up being wrong. But again, this movie plays far better for the living than it does the dead. So you're looking at me, you're like, there's this stare. It's just happening.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I want to say, and
I know it's getting late. Getting very late.
Wow, we're already over time.
Yeah.
We'll save this conversation for next time.
Oh, next time. Here we go.
I'll say it here, Ouija board.
Oh. Well,
we're not going to talk about it right now. But we're going to talk about it next episode.
Yes.
Ouija board. So, overall, I think this movie is amazing because, like, it is a very relevant point, what they're trying to say about, it's your belief, it's your mindset that kind of puts you into wherever you're at in the afterlife. And that people can still communicate across any amount of distance. Whether it's spiritually, emotionally, possibly even physically, though that is incredibly hard and rare. And that, if you really love someone, you can connect with them no matter how difficult it is.
Yeah.
And I really, really just want to make a point about the last part of the movie where he goes into his wife's hell and he decides, well, if I can't get her out of here, I'm just going to stay here with her because I'd rather be in hell with the person that I love more than anything else.
Damn straight.
Than in heaven alone.
Damn straight.
And that's what saves her. Is that she realizes that too.
Yeah. And I mean, if he didn't stay with her, if he didn't, how would that be heaven? Again, that just, it's one of those things that the movie does a phenomenal job of calling bullshit on popular conceptions of heaven and hell. It's really wonderful in that. I know we got to wrap up. I mean, we're going to talk about this next time. We're going to do it. Okay. And if you got your questions about this, folks, YouTube comments, Spotify comments, fu@xxtech.net, get the stuff in. I just got to say, a Ouija board is a conjuring. Like that's very different than one side willing the other,
I think the next episode has just written itself. We're going to talk all about the afterlife again, but from a different perspective.
All right. That's what's going to happen there. So
my goodness, this movie makes me cry so hard every time I watch it.
It's heart-wrenching. It's so beautiful.
It's so beautiful.
Yes.
Please watch it if you never have.
Yes. I really have no real criticisms of this film. I mean, I may disagree with some aspects of depictions on it. But again, I just want to reiterate this. I think the film is so much more powerful for the living than it is for what it says about the afterlife. And just invert this baby and go and live. Oh, it's so great. It's so wonderful.
I think you're just saying that because you want people to focus more on this life than they do on the next life. Because we've had this idea that the afterlife is all that matters shoved down our throat our entire lives, and you're being reactive to that.
You're right. I mean, I mean, yes, I'm being reactive. That's not my primary thrust, but I'm not going to say you're wrong, but it's important.
It's important to find the middle path.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, your point is certainly valid. I totally agree that people should apply these concepts while they're still here on Earth, because then ooh, baby, heaven could be a place on earth.
As it is. Love that song. Should be the theme song for the show if we wouldn't get taken down for using it. But anyway, any last comments, Ellen, that you want to get out on this movie?
Great question. I really love
yes,
that
thank
this
you so much for
person
that question.
wrote into us and asked this question. And
wonderful
thank you
human being.
For being vulnerable and sharing some of those details about your life with us. So,
yes, so honored.
Much appreciated.
Absolutely, yeah.
And again, everyone else, please get in your questions and comments. We'll try to get to them.
And if you got comments on the movie, get those in, because we'll get those in the next episode too. So, or the book, feel free. Rock 'em. Okay, well, the Afterlife, part 2, coming up in the next episode. We'll see all of you on the other side.
You just experienced Sexoterica. This show, while fun, includes extensive original research that is only possible by funding from people like you. Go to patreon.com/sovryn if you'd like to donate. And if you enjoyed the show, please like, comment and subscribe or leave a review. From all of us at Sexoterica, we love you and we thank you. We really, really do.